This is good. All right, let me see here. I see that, so you have the questions.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, let's go ahead. I think I will start asking you those questions. So, right. Actually,
will you give me exactly the questions that you wrote to me?
Sure. All right.
Okay, fine.
So first of all,
so basically, I will say the same thing that I wrote. So if you want to give me other questions, of course you can in the middle of the conversation. I don't know, as you like.
Yeah, sure. So let me just give you introduction from my part.
Yes.
Okay. So the idea here is that I run a radio program. It's online here in Houston, and I try to, besides informing the public about what is happening in space.
Yes, what we're doing here. Okay, fine.
I'm also, interviewing people such as yourself. So, all right. Okay, let's get started. All right. So what? Okay, I guess I will go through the questions. So when did you become interested in space?
Okay, more or less during 80s of the past century, I began reflecting about the limits to growth. Limits to Growth was a report to the Club of Rome issued in 1962 by MIT of Boston, Massachusetts. I came to the conclusion that the claimed limits exist only in a closed world philosophical frame. If our civilization aims to survive and keep on progressing, we must overcome the limits, in few words, expanding into space. Such a reflection was in tune with the Kraft Eric's critics of the green philosophy in the first 80s, before his death in 1984.
Right. I completely agree with your viewpoint. Now, I'm wondering, in order for you to do this, you must have a associated background. So what is your educational and professional or work background?
Oh, well, I am a non-graduated engineer in industrial electronics. Now I am retired, and I was a small entrepreneur in the field of automation real-time systems for industry, infrastructures, and research, namely aerospace.
That's great. I think you have the background credentials for this. So how did you become involved in your organization, Space Renaissance International, and why did you decide to start SRI?
Well, actually, I founded this organization, this association, together with Patrick Collins. Patrick Collins is an English guy working in Japan since many years. He is teaching economics at the University of Asabu near Tokyo. However, at the beginning in the beginning of 90s, I created a webzine called Technologies of the Frontier, on which I started to write articles and papers on the subject of civilian space development. Doing that, I got in touch with several space activists worldwide, namely Patrick Collins, Michael Martin Smith from UK, Marco Bernasconi from Switzerland, Dave Gray from US, and other guys that were developing a line of thinking similar to mine. In 2008, Technologies of the Frontier and Space Future held a convention at Belgirate, Lago Maggiore in Italy. The convention was named Colonizing the Moon and the Near-Earth Asteroids for a New Renaissance. In that convention, we gave birth to Space Renaissance, setting the objective to create an academy. The mission of such academy is to refund the general philosophy to complete the Copernican revolution towards the concept of open world. We reflected on the historical Renaissance when some rich families, namely the Medici, sponsorized the cultural and artistic renaissance of their time. So we reflected that nowadays we need a new renaissance, and we pointed out that a renaissance is different from a revolution, because a revolution is violent and is hard counter position, while a renaissance is a pacific process, a pacific social process that take place because there are new ideas and there are people available to support it with their money to fund it. Okay, this was the spirit when we gave birth to the space renaissance.
Wow, that is quite the story, and I can see that you worked with quite a number of very important space activists. That's really good. I know that you and other people in Space Renaissance International also attended the World Congresses, and I was wondering, what is your experience and what resulted from attending those World Congresses?
Yes, we held two world congresses since the beginning. The first one was in 2011, and the second one, and the last by now, was in 2016. We try to hold our congresses each for maximum 5 years, and we prepare theses. So our congresses are a little bit different from space conventions and congresses that we are used to see. For instance, the International Astronautical Federation Congress, or SpaceCom, or other yearly congresses. We take more time. We take 4 or 5 years, but we try to write a thesis for our Congress that is a general understanding of the situation of the civilization, particularly, namely in its process of opening the space frontier and expanding into space. So in the first Congress, we indicated space tourism as the first priority, since we analyzed suborbital tourism as the only industrial development line that could accumulate capital by selling travel tickets and use those financial resources to improve the technologies and thus develop low-cost access to space. It didn't happen so far. Maybe we are not so far now from the first commercial suborbital travel. So give me just a few seconds. I have to close my window because there is a noisy loud in the rod. Just a moment. Okay, I'm here. So it didn't happen. Maybe Virgin Galactic will finally start commercial flights early next year, or maybe later this year. But we also wrote the new space industry and its business figure had an exciting growth after the victory of X Prize by Scale Composites in 2004, from around 20 up to 100 companies and growing. But that could be still too weak to reverse the crisis and to relaunch the economy in time to avoid a general bankruptcy. That's where the governments and public money keep having a key role, not only promoting space, science, and exploration, but also supporting the private industries in their dramatically decisive task of opening the Earth orbit to private enterprises. The task of SRI and of the whole space movement for the next years is then clear and simple. We must quickly elevate the public awareness of the absolute urgency to open the space frontier. So this was the first Congress in 2011. In the second World Congress in 2016, we adjusted the analysis. We recognized that it was not space tourism role so far to be the main paradigm change catalyst, and our forecast was wrong. Space tourism is still some time away, as it was 5 years ago. We wrote this in 2016, and now I hope it's a little bit different. The main need, still unfulfilled, remains cheap, fully reusable space transportation, key for opening outer space to tourism and any other civilian activities. Until such key milestones are achieved, civilian space travel will not be economically feasible. Space will remain the prerogative of governments for military purposes. So the space industry developed significantly, but more thanks to Elon Musk's effort than those of Richard Branson. Musk's strategy is more pragmatic. He got NASA contracts and used that money to develop reusable launch vehicles. By the way, recently Elon joined us in this forecast. If demographic growth will reach its peak in a still closed world, it will produce an irreparable failure, the implosion of civilization. So our analysis says clearly that if we will not open the world system, we will not open the world and the space frontier during the next 10 years, we are really running a very, very high risk. So this is something that not everybody is aware of, because many space enthusiasts think that we are centuries before us, and we have time to develop human space flight, etc., etc. We don't think so. We think that we don't have such a big time, because we also take care about the social problems and the processes that are going on, like the migration and the climate problem and the pollution, a lot of threats that are pending over our 8 billion humans civilization on Earth. So after the Congress, during the last 3 years, we deepened the analysis about what is urgent to do in order to bootstrap the civilization expansion into space. Space exploration is useful, but not enough. We could keep on exploring space for other 50 years and our civilization could remain enchained to the bottom of the gravitational well. Satellites and mere robotic navigation in space is not enough. Moreover, it can be dangerous if not manned, closing us in a cage of debris. Reusable launch vehicles are the very first step. So well done, Elon, and well done, Jeff Bezos, and well done all the industries that are now working to reusable launch vehicles and cheap, low-cost vehicles and so on. But what do we need in order to allow civilians to travel, work, and live in space? Low-cost reusable passenger space transportation systems, okay. But also low acceleration during Earth-to-orbit travel. If we are not astronauts, if we are not trained for space, we will not tolerate, our organism will not tolerate 4-5G of acceleration during the travel to orbit. So we need low acceleration vehicles that don't go over the normal liners acceleration. That's about 1.4 G. So we also need a safer enter into atmosphere, because we all of us remember the tragedy of the Challenger that burned, re-entering in the atmosphere. We need protection against cosmic radiations. We need artificial gravity, and we need green environment in space structures, in space infrastructures. So we have to experimented zero gravity and low gravity during the last 40 years. Before was the Skylab, then was Mir, and then the International Space Station. But nobody thought so far to make 2 modules, for instance, like the ISS, instead of making one only module big as a Saucer field, they could now make 2 modules, each one big as a half Saucer field, connected them by a tube and make them rotate around the hub in order to start experimenting artificial gravity. That's one of the real challenges we have if we want to bring civilians to work and to live in space for more than 5-6 months. So if we want to go over the paradigm of exploration, because exploration missions, except the mission to Mars that will be longer, so far exploration missions didn't last more than a few months. But if we want to start working in space and living in space, we need to create infrastructures and vehicles that allow us to stay more time and to be safe with our health. So last but not least, we also need a green environment in space infrastructures, because we are not used, and I think we will never be used, and we don't want to be used to live in a metal can for 1 or 2 years. We are used with the green environments on Earth, and the same thing we have to build in space. So, sorry for this long answer, but however, you asked me about 2 congresses, and I had to give you a bit of information. Okay.
Oh, this is very informative. So moving on to my next question, I realized actually question 5 and 6, they're very similar. So let me just ask you both of them. I think you already gave a lot of information on Space Renaissance Academy. So let me skip question 5. Let me ask you question 6. What is the current state of SRI? Where are you today?
Oh, well, in my opinion, SRI made a giant work after its foundation 10 years ago. Holding 2 international congresses and 2 national ones in Italy, basically. We have now 3 incorporated associations: the Space Renaissance International, Space Renaissance Italian, this the Italian chapter, and Space Renaissance USA, that's the USA chapter. A group working towards a national chapter also existed in India. And we produced articles and papers, and we were present in the most relevant international space conferences. Just last year, in 2018, we were at Vienna Unispace Plus 50, where we gave a short pitch about our recommendations for civilian passengers transportation. We were in Bremen at the International Astronautical Congress 69th. We were at SpaceCom 2018 in Houston. In May, Space Renaissance Italia held its 2nd National Congress at the INAF in Bologna. Is the Istituto Nazionale di Astrofisica. It's a very important research site with more than 40 high professional speakers titled Orbital Workshops first level of civil expansion into space. We have globally an audience of about 30,000 followers on socials worldwide, a main website and 3 national websites on the site of the Academy, and the site of the Academy.
Right.
SRI is currently a think tank. We try to become an organization with national chapters, but such a process is at its very first steps. As we said about the Academy, we have a good conceptual direction, but not an organizational and funding one. So the problem is maybe a managerial problem, in order to have somebody having good skills of organization and management, and not only of philosophical reflection and development. So currently we have these philosophical capability, but not management and organizational skills. So what we need would be both having persons, achieving persons, endowed with such skills, and achieve funds. But I think that the two things are consequential, because if we have people, if we have someone endowed with managerial capacities, then we would get funds. But it could be also reverse. We can get fund and then find managerial capacities, of course. So the first is welcome. The first coming in is welcome, of course.
Of course, of course. I think you answered part of my question number 7, which is, where do you see SRI in the next, and the Academy in the next 5 years?
Yes, this is not easy. 2019 for me is a year of reflection. The SRI exists. It has a history of 10 years. So people now have seen that we are serious, that we are not a meteor appearing and disappearing in a few months. Our analysis and recommendations are there too. Will somebody come and help? To be honest, I am. I told you before about our travels in 2018, and I have to say I'm a bit disappointed, because yes, there is a big excitement. The new space sector is growing very quickly. It is now, I think, about 400 billion a year, the cipher of affair, and it is foreseen to be 1 trillion in few years. So one could think that things are going very well, but what I saw is that everybody, where I speak and I say that our priority should be what I said before: low acceleration, protection against radiations, artificial gravity, etc. They say you're right, but then their focus is not this. Their focus are now satellites, their focus are robotic missions, and everybody sticks on talking about exploration. They discuss if it is better to go first to the moon or to Mars. They discuss what to do if we have to make the moon station in a Lagrange point or not, or go directly on the moon. But all of these discussions are in the frame of exploration. Everybody seems to avoid the words expansion, industrialization, settlement. And this is very concerning for me. And I really don't understand, because even when they talk about the rationales for going to space, seems that nobody takes care of the very big first rational that we are 8 billion and we need to expand, or we run a very, very big risk. We are not the only ones to say this. Stephen Hawking said this several times before dying. Jeff Bezos has a very, very good plan. I think is the best plan, Jeff Bezos, to progressively move industries in the geolunar space and to make of Earth a beautiful garden. So I think this is the best vision currently. But well, how can I see? I don't see very much people to be coherent, to follow with this kind of vision. Industry is growing on satellites again. We already made it with telecommunication and Earth observation satellites, and we are now in a cage of debris. So what we need is also to go there and clean orbit. Right. And I think this is a little bit still in a big delay. However, okay. So I decided to step aside for this year and to see what happens and to reflect and try to understand what is the better, because next year we have to prepare the thesis for our third Congress. So, okay, this is my point now. And I don't know what will be in the next 5 years. I really hope that the frontier will be really open and space renaissance will be any more necessary, because all the things will go in the right direction, and we can simply be part of this process and work together to develop the space frontier.
I think you answered a lot of the question. That I think you answered a large part of my question 8, where I ask you.
Yes, that's true.
What would you hope the space industry to be in the next 10 years, 20 years? So maybe you can talk about the things that you have not said yet. Let me see. I think you mentioned here, okay, you say your hope is in Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. That's great. The six main recommendations. Can you talk about, let's see, the O'Neill model and the mission to Mars? So I think it's the last 3 paragraphs that you have not said yet. So you say,
yeah. Yes, I think that our priorities, well, it's hard for me to say. I don't like to really criticize the mission to Mars. Mission to Mars is wonderful. It is inspiring for the people. It's a great thing, etc. But I think that mission to Mars should be, let me say, the diamond, punta di diamante, no? The diamond launch edge, no? On a serious expansion plan. So, to be honest, I would like to start travel to Mars, starting from a moon base, starting from a big harbor in a Lagrange point. That would mean that we have really begun to expand, that we would have orbital big harbors around Earth in geostationary orbit, that we would have hotels around Earth, that we will have stations and hotels around the moon and on the moon, that we will be working on the moon to extract materials, that we will be maybe building the first O'Neill city, because I believe that the O'Neill model is the best, because we can live at 1G gravity. If we will live on the moon, we will live at 1/6 of the Earth gravity. That means that after the first generation, but already people living on that gravity for 10 years will never come back to the Earth, if not on a wheelchair. So on air, I think, is the right solution to make big cities using raw materials from asteroids in order to build our habitats, protected from cosmic radiation, rotating in order to have the gravity, and we can build how many we need of these things, because there is plenty of materials in the asteroids, not only the asteroid belts, but also from on the near Earth asteroids. That it's also very interesting to begin able to catch them in order to prevent them to catch us. Okay.
That is true.
Yeah. So, well, if we are going to the conclusion of this conversation, I would like to launch an invitation to Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk to a public discussion on my requirements 1 to 6 for civilian space development. I will repeat them again: launch cost reusable passenger space transportation systems, low acceleration during Earth to orbit travel, safe re-enter into atmosphere, protection against cosmic radiation, artificial gravity, green environment in space infrastructures. So I can think that they don't care about these things. So I would like to understand if they have plans for that, and if they want to help us to give more priority to these researches that are, well, these goals also still include some scientific research, because we already made studies for protection against cosmic radiation, but there is a lot of work to do still. And maybe the easiest thing is artificial gravity, because it's enough to make structures big enough to have it. But however, all the other points still need research. But well, I think we have resources, we have agencies with good scientific skills, we have everything we need. So the problem is to start. So I would like to ask Jeff and Elon, are we starting to do that? Can we talk about and see what can be done in order to accelerate investments and an announcement of the priority on these topics?
I see. I think that would be wonderful to know how they think, and to work together with SRI. So this leads me to my last question for you, which summary actually. So what is I guess, well, what can SRI do to push this forward? And you mentioned the space renaissance, but can you summarize what is SRI's, what we are lacking right now and what we need to do? So
yes. Well, so what could we say to the young people?
exactly.
Since its birth, Space Renaissance is saying that we will not go anywhere without philosophy. In the beginning, many sincere space activists said us that philosophy is only words, and going to space needs science and technology. Yes, it did. But we say going to space needs science, technology, and philosophy. A humanist philosophical background is very much needed, whatever will be our activity. If we don't think that each one of the almost 8 billion humans living on this planet deserve a better future and a genetic continuation, that means to have children, we don't understand the deeper reason of the civilization expansion into space. So I think that really a humanist philosophical background is important, is essential to understand why we need to expand into space. If we are engineers and project managers and we don't have a humanist philosophical background, we will not design systems, be they robots, artificial intelligence, etc., really useful for human use and support. So I think we at Space Renaissance, we were, let me say, we developed our position, our analysis, etc., because we are starting from a humanist vision. That's not a religious vision. Is a laicist that also include religions. Why not? We were not against religions, but however, is a humanist vision. Think about the concrete rights of 8 billion people. We don't think humanity is an abstract thing. It's very concrete. We are thinking about people that they are suffering. They are hoping. They try to make a better world for their children, etc. So this is why we have to go to space. I think that yes, of course, adventure is a reason, and the necessity, the curiosity is a reason. The need to go over the next hill is a reason. But we need to go to space because 8 billion people can't do without it. So I think this is not a catastrophistic message to the young. I think this, if we say them that opening the space frontier will give hope to the people because it will relaunch the big projects. It will relaunch the enthusiasm to study, to go to school, to become not only astronauts but also all the other jobs that will be done in space. Because if we think about civilian expansion, we will not everyone will be astronauts. If we travel on a ship, we are not sailors. Okay, we are passengers, and so therefore we have to enter a new way of thinking that is the normal jobs that we are doing on the surface of Earth tomorrow, but not tomorrow in a future distant future. Tomorrow morning we will do these jobs in space. I think this is the best, in my opinion, the best message that we can give to the young people in order to inspire and to move them to work for this perspective.
I completely agree with you. And I think it's wonderful that we need to look at the philosophical side as well as understand that it's not just curiosity, it's that we have an urgency. But I like also what you said, that it is not a catastrophic message, it is to inspire. So I definitely appreciate your time. Is there anything else that you have not said yet?
Thank you for this opportunity, Shen. I'm very happy to have responded to your questions. That always each time that somebody give me questions stimulates my reflection, and I always think something new that I have to add to my agenda to work on. So thank you very much, very much.
Of course, no problem. And if I have other questions, I will email you. I have not yet read the papers SRI has produced, but I will. So thank you for your time.
Okay, you're welcome. Very welcome.
All right, you take care.
Bye-bye.